review and approve the meeting notes, the meeting minutes from the April meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes? Nobody wants to approve them. What's the issue with the minutes?
I wasn't here, so I can't approve them. That's my excuse.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Gotcha. Well, this will be something that I'll have to run by if nobody wants to make a motion to approve. Never mind. Tanya, you were there for that one. That was the one that Marianne wasn't there for, but I did I ended up doing the meeting notes, and I actually watched the recording in its entirety and basically compared that to the notes that I took from the meeting. And that's what basically the minutes are just a written version, almost borderline a transcript of it. So Tanya's making a motion to approve. Do we have a second to approve it? Second motion?
Well, if Tanya can approve it, I'll approve it.
Okay, great.
Neither one of us.
Minutes approved. Minutes approved. Okay, so next up, we're going to start. This is the first meeting. We're going to start with a suggestion that we were going to implement during the last meeting, but which was to open up the floor to public comments at the very beginning. So anybody that was attending from the public could say their piece, get any issues or any commentary, anything like that out in front, so they didn't have to necessarily stick around and listen to all the business that was at hand. So we open up the floor to public comment. If anybody has anything to say or add. Sounds like nothing for this month. The third thing that is on the agenda, and I'll take this opportunity to note and thank, even though he's not here, we had a resignation from the group a couple weeks ago. Jerry stepped down, unfortunately. His contributions in the few months that the committee was up and running are immeasurable. He moved the group forward in so many different ways, including work that we had done on the mission statement. What I'm going to do is take his last suggestion and forward it around with the slightest of edits for everyone to consider. And I think we're going to be able to move forward with that. We won't take a vote on it tonight. I'd rather have everyone in the group be good with it. And I'd also rather have one of the upcoming subjects on the agenda nailed down before we actually nail down the mission statement. Regardless, it's not going to impede any of the further business. So that said, look for that coming soon. The next two things are, I debated actually which one comes before the other one, but we actually have two board openings. We've had two members step down, one of them being the position that was vacated by the co-chair. So not only are we on the lookout for two new members of the board, we're also looking for someone to step into the role of co-chair. And whether that's a person that's currently on the call and on the board right now, or it could potentially be one of the new members. I asked Ian for his advice on how we go about finding both the new board members and how we can go about finding a new chair to step in. Said we can do that I'm paraphrasing, of course, here, but we can do that in a relatively organic way. I've asked a couple people that I've met along the way who are either or engaged with both biking in some way, shape, or form and or walking in the town to come aboard. The people that I asked are not able to make it tonight. They might jump on later on in the call. That would be a great surprise. But I've outlined to both those groups of people what some of the responsibilities are, the general tact that the organization has been taking. They are people who have vested and non-vested interests in a lot of what we have been doing, whether it's from the standpoint of people who are very, very deep into the cycling world here in town, people who are both avid walkers and are going to be positively impacted by some of the traffic calming moves that we're doing. So those are the types of people that I've reached out to. I encourage all of you to do the same in hopes that we can in advance, and I'll ask, I'll reach out to Ian and ask him what again, the rules of engagement are on any of us making these moves out of session, meaning quorum, but but done via email or something like that, to jump some new people into the gang, as it were. So please be thinking about anybody that you know in town that might be interested in either joining the group on an official level, or even as we start to pick up steam into June and July, where some things are happening, that they would just like to help out or be involved in some of our efforts, regardless of whether they're on the board or not. I'll ask the group right now, does that ring any bells for anyone? Does anybody have anyone in mind that in addition to being able to donate one night a month and maybe just and I've even said this to a couple of the people I reached out to, it's literally like, for one of the people, all I need them to do to be a part of the board, besides attend and show up and contribute, is help me write or help me measure Pine Street and measure and mark Pine Street for when they paint the lines. I need an extra set of hands for that. And that would be a tremendous, that would be a tremendous contribution to our very near-term efforts. Tanya, you mentioned the person who was on the first call and then gracefully stepped out. I thought of that too. I haven't gone back and dug into the notes from who that person was. I will do that after this call. Oh, okay. All right, Mark. I'll look up his bio and his contact information, Kevin, and see if he is interested. I thought it was the way he bowed out was extremely gracious and casual and terrific, and it'd be awesome to see if he was interested in joining up again. Let's see. So that covers agenda items 4 and 5. 6 is the Pine Street and North Street traffic calming. I had a person forwarded to me from Ian. They reached out to Ian, and she was a resident of Pine Street with an amazing and impassioned and measured note about some of the situations and challenges she faces as a resident of Pine Street. And some of the things that she suggested, I'll tell you, it was a pleasure to be able to respond back to her and say, thank you for your note. Not only do we agree with what you're saying, we're actually going to be doing exactly what you're suggesting. From some of the actual Pine Street traffic calming things we're going to be doing, all the way to dropping the village speed limit, her email contained those things. So it was great to see people on Pine Street, and I've even talked to people informally who are very excited about what's going on. It's great to have people like Chief Nason's support for a lot of what we're doing, but equally, it's great to know that people in the village, I have yet to come across a person in the village who says, you're going to lower the speed limit? Well, you should be raising it. Like, I don't know about all of you, but it feels like the momentum within the village is very much moving in the right direction as far as all this is concerned. In all of you on the call right now, have any of you been able to talk with anybody in your travels or casually or anything like that? And have you mentioned anything that we've been doing to people you know here in the village or the town? I got a yes from Tanya. Kevin, what have you got?
Yeah, obviously, I've communicated with my students at Mount Abe and the school administration briefly about the group and some of the plans and conversation about how to make things safer. With the changes and the end of the school year and some of the challenges that the school's been managing, most of the conversations were good. That sounds good, but it really was just kind of on the outside. They're curious about it, but there wasn't more than that.
Understood.
Yeah, so nothing negative. It was all positive. I'm hopeful that it'll continue to get that support, where there's some the primary person in charge of student behavior, and again, thinking about student drivers and parents bringing students to school and parents picking up students after school, that administrator has left our district, and there will be a new person. So I have not had a direct conversation with that new administrator. Their title is Dean of Students. So that will occur.
Got it. Tanya, anything you'd like to add? You mentioned that you had talked with people.
Mostly they were people that are walkers, not cyclists.
Yeah.
And we're definitely excited because they frequent Pine Street on their walks. But also a lot of the enthusiasm was the mention of possibly incorporating the artistic elements.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yep. You're really wanting to bring that into Bristol because it's already such a creative place. And especially like with the trails, we've incorporated art. So it'd be cool to bring that onto Pine Street as well in some way.
That's terrific to hear. One of the people that I've spoken with about potentially joining the board is very involved in some of the trail efforts that are happening in and outside of town. In fact, they're kind of mainstays in the effort to grow the trail network beyond the village, heading out basically all the way over to New Leaf and then over New Leaf to the watershed. So that I think what I'd like to do is I'm going to reach out to a couple of the people that they're working with peripherally that have a stake in the BTN, as well as some of the efforts that they're doing heading out towards the New Leaf and the watershed, about what we could potentially do there. Because and I think one of the other things that's on the list, the Triangle Bike Loop, that's that thing that's coming up next, is also factors into our efforts outside of the village, some of the things that we can do there.
As a tangent, they're not looking at the possibility of any kind of trail going towards the falls or anything, right? I know with the summer, a lot of people are, mentioning that again.
It was one of the first things one of the people that I reached out to and asked about joining the committee said was, we need to do something about the getting from the village to the falls. So that's one of my hopes, is that this person joins so that they could potentially spearhead wherever that effort goes. They're very passionate about that lane, that travel between here and there. It was like the first or second thing that they said to me when I brought this up to them.
That's excellent.
Yeah, and I think that I mentioned this on the whatever we're going to call it, the informal call from last month. But our hopes with the Pine Street and North Street effort are that it gives us some kind of a template for dealing with some of these challenges that are popping up in other areas. Now, I don't know, given the nature of the road there, that it's a state road, there's going to be some other challenges there. But this group, one of the people that I reached out to, has been doing a lot of outreach to private landowners about right of ways and things like that. Basically think about it as the vast trails, but for mountain biking and walking and things like that. Not unlike the BTN, certainly what they've done as well. So hopefully something comes of that, because you're not the first person that's mentioned that.
Great.
Let's see if there isn't anything else on that. So Tanya, you mentioned you might be able to chip in on helping measure Pine Street. I've also got someone from Pine Street that's willing to jump in there. I've just got to review Jerry's notes from the group that's going to be doing that. See if there's any notes about connecting with Eric Coda. I know he was instrumental in the conversations Jerry was having. And then I believe our next move is to do two things. We have to present our formal proposal to the select board, as well as there's some prep work that we need to do in advance for the company that's going to be painting the initial lines on the streets. I will do that inside of the next couple of days and forward everything that I can find about that to the group via email.
Okay. How soon are you looking to measure?
I honestly I had wanted to do it this week, but it got away from me. I have to check with the timelines that we're under for that, but I want to do it. I want to do it before the end of next week.
Okay. I think the only day I'm not available for sure is Saturday. So.
Okay, then we'll keep in touch about it. I just have to make sure I have the tools necessary, a wide enough tape measure, basically, because
Right.
I walked part of it this morning, and there's some areas down towards the town garage that are actually, it feels a little roomier than the tape measure I thought I was going to be able to measure it with than I had previously thought. So I just got to check on that, and I'll get back to you.
Great.
The next one is the 25-mile-an-hour village speed limit. I mentioned this on the last informal call, but in Jerry's conversations with Chief Nason, he learned something very interesting about signage on the state highways, that we have the opportunity to actually change the signage. I don't want to speak for Chief Nason because I didn't hear this from him, Jerry did, but that we can actually change the signs without the state changing the speed limit. So in addition to the fact that it feels like the way is paved for us to just make the switch over from 30-mile-an-hour to 25-mile-an-hour signs in the village proper, we also might be able to do it out on the main drag there. That said, Jerry did an audit of all of the signs in the village. I believe that information is on the cloud share. If anybody wants to take a look at that. I've got a backlog of Jerry's notes that I've got to go through and walk through, because as you know, he had his hands on a lot of these initiatives, and I need to, in the interim, pick up the slack on that and run with a couple of things that he had been spearheading. 25-mile-an-hour conversation, pardon me, was one of them. The triangle bike loop. I apologize if I can't recall if I mentioned this in detail on April's call, but we did talk about it a little bit on May's call. I reached out to the person who's running that initiative and got some more information on it. We'll actually hope to have them on a future call, maybe the next one that we have, a future meeting to tell us all about it. I've taken all the information and the maps and things like that they provided, and those are on the share. There's some interesting information in addition to the route itself. It's a lot of the kinds of best practices and information on how to do things, how to mark things that we had gotten from the ad hoc committee as well. So it's nice to see that a lot of the initiatives that this formal committee is built on the back of are actually things that other organizations throughout the region are basing their efforts on as well. So like I said, that information is on the cloud share. I'll send a link to the actual folder that it's in, the location of those files after the meeting, if anybody wants to go in and look at it. But like I said, I'm going to try to get the guy who's spearheading that on one of the next calls so that he can talk about that. It is definitely of great interest to us for a variety of reasons, not least of which is some of the things that we talked about the intersection there, where Plank Road goes from pavement to dirt, and some of the things that we could potentially do there. I've ridden that with friends a few times in the last couple of weeks, and it is as sketchy as it ever was. And now that it might be a part of this formal thing, I think it's all the more reason to have a conversation about what we can do to make that intersection safer. And again, it speaks to some of the things that we were talking about from a overall mission level, which is to think about biking and walking in a greater context than just the village. That it's something that we're trying to see the entirety of the town as a part of as something that we want to improve the health and safety of from a biking and walking standpoint. So, like I said, I'll send a link to that information. It's in addition to it just being very interesting, the whole thought process behind why they're doing this triangle bike loop. There's also just some great reinforcing best practices stuff in there. The final bike walk and roll to school results event of the year was it was done. Obviously, school is out of session now, but the numbers were very similar to the ones previously. They're very good. I will post what we were able to do with this last month's bike walk and roll to school was to get actual data on who cycled, who walked, and who scooted and rollerbladed to school. And we were able to carve out some of the people who were merely just signing up because they wanted a free sticker or they wanted their class to win the pudding party or whatever the spiff was, whatever the incentive was. We were able to get some real data on who was doing what as far as getting to school. So that was cool to see. Other business. So Marianne forwarded me something, asked me if I'd gotten it. I mistakenly said, no, I didn't get it. Marianne, I actually did get it. And it was literally right underneath your forward of the same thing. I'm talking about something that we got, and I'm not sure how they get our emails. We're obviously on local motion, some form of local motions mailing list, but I don't believe I'm getting I don't get barraged with local motion emails. But this is a note about Vermont's bike walk laws. There's a webinar and discussion that's coming up on June 30th from 12 to 2. I will forward this invite to everyone just in case you aren't on that. I will attend this. One of the things that I was reading about, and I decided not to forward because oddly, this webinar looks like it's going to potentially touch on it, is the success that towns, municipalities have had in doing the can't remember what the technical term is for it, but it's basically laws that allow bicycles to roll through stop signs, and how they have greatly reduced injuries to bikers as a result of that. The challenge with laws like that is that it appears from what I have read that those have to be enacted at the state level, not the town level. So not unlike how there's a state law that says all bikes after dark have to have a tail light, and any further laws that come onto it have to be in addition to that. They can't contravene that. The state also would have to enact a similar law. Now, I don't know, don't take that as the gospel. That's just in my lightweight research around it. But because every instance that they were pointing to as far as surveys and studies about the success of those laws was showing that they had emanated at a state level. So hopefully that's something that's going to be on the agenda there. It's certainly something that the village could potentially benefit from. It's certainly, it's certainly something that's going on right now. And as we start to really look at a lot of these traffic calming things and the ask for more stop signs in places, it feels like it's part and parcel of that discussion. Marianne, do you have anything else to say based on what you saw with that webinar? You're on mute, unfortunately.
Okay, I'm back. No, I really, because I'm working off site that day and I knew I couldn't attend. I'm sorry. I didn't really pay attention.
No worries. No worries. It looks great. I'll attend. If anybody else wants to, we'll send the information along. And I folded into that discussion again, something that I had kind of seen out there, but didn't want to make a formal agenda item again because it's beyond our control. But it's that idea of the rolling stop thing for.
I've read that
for
too,
cyclists.
and it sounds safer because people always fall off their bikes when they're trying to unclip or.
As someone who's clipped in for a long time,
Yeah.
I forget about those days. But then when I was reminded, I was like, oh wait, yeah, I remember that. I remember having to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I'll start gathering some of the stuff that I read about that. But again, hopefully it's something that they discuss because it would be great to it would be great to see. Does anybody else have any non-agenda items that they would like to discuss since we're in the other business part of the night now?
Has there been any discussion about having a presence on the 4th of July?
Jerry was the spearhead for that. He was going to, he had built this great little kind of kiosk display thing for the human powered parade that I kind of assumed that's what he was going to use for the presence there. With his opting out, that's obviously not going to happen. If anybody wants to volunteer for that, let me know and I'll reach out to Jerry and see if he made a trifold and he's got a bunch of other things that he got from Locomotion. I should just get that stuff anyway, but please let me know if anybody wants to volunteer for that. I unfortunately have another commitment that day, so I would be unable to do it. But if anybody's interested in doing that, by all means, raise your hand and we will do what we can to make that happen. We did hand out at Bike, Walk, and Roll to School, we did hand out the material that Jerry had forwarded along from Locomotion, some other things like that. So we were able to get some of that stuff out, some of the stickers, the safe biking stickers and things of that nature. So.
There's no one else to partner with in terms of having a booth?
I
mean, I don't know really what vendors are out there, but
that's the thing. I need to state my ignorance for what happens beyond my front yard on the 4th of July, because we're blessed / mildly cursed with being on the parade route. And so I have never seen the 4th of July from beyond the confines of our yard, including the glory days when we first moved here of actual outhouses in the outhouse race versus the ones that they have today. So there's a whole world of 4th of July on the green. I'll ask a couple people to see what's going on there. I'll even ask, I'll even see what's going on with the rec club as well as Locomotion and see if anybody else has anything going on out there. Oh, I was able to finally at the Human Powered Parade, I was able to make contact with Meredith, the rec director. So we've got a contact there now, and she's awesome. They've got a great thing going on there. In fact, they're doing, I think it might be wave 1 of their mountain biking camps this week. So I'm in contact with Meredith. So we've got a connection and ally there, and obviously that's a door we want to swing both ways. Anything that we can help out with there, we're certainly there for. And that's actually something that I've been talking with a variety of people about, is that, if you've got something going on, that's like this group that's trying to gain access and build trails out to New Leaf. I've said, if you've got something that you think we as the official committee can help with, as far as introductions to landowners and things of that nature, by all means, let us know, because guaranteed someone on the committee has a contact or knows somebody that might be able to make some of those efforts go a little more smoothly. Any other thoughts, comments, or subjects that anybody wants to discuss this week? As mentioned, we're going to move fast. Tanya, I will reach out to you when we can schedule the Pine Street thing. I know roughly what we have to do based on so many conversations with Jerry about it. I just need to go over his notes and make sure we're either not doing too little or doing too much. I was thinking about that when I was walking Pine Street this morning, that I believe we actually do the pre-marking for the people who are going to be marking the roads. Beyond that, as I think I mentioned this on the previous call, that not everybody could attend. When we forward our formal suggestions for the traffic calming on Pine Street, we are going to ask for stop signs at as many of the intersections as possible, in hopes that we at least get 1 or 2 of them. I know from the impassioned email we got from the resident of Pine Street, as well as other people on Pine Street that I've talked to, that they're very sensitive to what's going on there. They understand exactly what Dustin has mentioned before, which is people use that as an unimpeded shortcut. They're not necessarily people from the village or from the town that are doing it. And they have, by extension, they seem to have no real concern about the after effects of treating Pine Street like a shortcut. So that effort there is having read this email, which I'll forward to everybody. It made it very, very, our efforts very, very real. to read what this person had to say. So. Okay, with that all said, and since I've talked as usual for billion minutes here and sucked all the oxygen out of the room, can I have, if nobody else has anything else to say, could someone please make a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn at 7:39.
Thank you, and I'll take Tanya's motion as a second. Jim, as always, thank you very much for attending. We appreciate seeing you here every month. And that's about it, everyone. I owe you some emails. I'll be sending those inside of the next couple of days. And in advance of that, please feel free to go on the cloud share and poke around and see some of the new information that's there. Additionally, again, if you hear anybody, if you can think of anybody that you want, let them know. Tanya, thank you for attending. Thanks for the note about your hard work. Thank you too. And that's about it, everyone. With all that, we adjourn and have a good weekend. Have a good yard sale weekend.